Good evening and welcome to Greater Somerville for July 26, 2011. I'm Joe Lynch. My guest tonight is a candidate for alderman in Ward 4 of the city of Somerville. A former candidate for mayor of the city and alderman at large, he currently seeks the open seat made available when current alderman Walter Pero decided not to seek re-election. A longtime resident and business owner in the city, he is a native of Portugal, a graduate of Boston College, and currently employs 14 people in his Somerville-based business, Flag Graphics. A resident of Ward 4 for over 20 years, he and his family make their home on Sycamore Street. It is my pleasure to welcome, for his first visit here at Greater Somerville, Ward 4 candidate for alderman, Tony Lafuente. And welcome. You're no stranger here to SCAT. You are no stranger. You've been down here a few times before. I did ask Tony if I could have a couple of small announcements right up front, as is my case. My good friend Stuart Joseph across the street just got home from a trip to Western Massachusetts, and I know he's probably watching right now. But Stuart, you've seen me on television. It's now time to go to bed. So I had to tell, his mom and dad made me promise that I would say that to him. And a couple of emails, I wanted to make one public response on an email that I got to friends of mine on Nantucket. No, I won't be down this summer. There are priorities in my life this summer. So who knew? You know, the internet is a wonderful thing.
Absolutely.
Just because we broadcast live here in Somerville doesn't mean that people all over can't see Greater Somerville.
Exactly.
And that's the beauty of it.
Wonderful.
So I told you I was going to ask you a couple of questions right up front. How's that?
Go to it.
Here you go. So there is a rumor going around, because we know the city loves rumors. There is a rumor going around the city that should you be successful in your bid for Ward 4 alderman,
Yes.
one of the first things you're going to try to do is to redraw the ward district lines and give 10 Hills Road over to Ward 1. And let that be Bill Roach's problem.
Well,
that was a good laugh.
I don't think I have that much power if I get elected, but I think we should keep them all in Ward 4.
As most of you may or may not know, the mayor, Alderman Dennis Sullivan, Alderman Bill White, and a few other city notables all live in the 10 Hills district now, and 3 of them live on the same street within rock throwing distance. So whoever is successful in Ward 4 gets to inherit all 3 of them. So, and then let me ask you this. This is something I thought about on the way to the studio. Picture this. You've won the election. It's February of 2012. There's 18 inches of snow on the ground in Somerville.
Okay.
10 Hills Road has not been plowed yet. Who should the people of Ward 4 and 10 Hills Road call? The mayor? Alderman Sullivan? Alderman White? The newspapers?
I think they should call me, and then I'll call the mayor.
There you go. There you go. There you go. A little levity goes a long way when you're into. You are no stranger to the Somerville public. You ran for mayor. You ran for alderman at large. The seat has now become open. Not yet. I mean, Alderman Pero is still the alderman from Ward 4, but you're going to make a run. So what makes Tony run for this seat?
Well, it all comes down to, being totally engaged in a city. Every time I've run for an office, I've run because I thought I could make a difference. And, this is no different, Joe. I've been in the ward for a very long time. When I brought my business to Somerville, it was actually to Ward 4 that we moved the business as well as our family on Medford Street, which we still own that home. And we continue to have it. We have lived in 3 different addresses in Ward 4. And Ward 4 is a place we call home. Our children were educated in Ward 4. The business was there, and now we continue to live there. It's a ward where I know the people, I know my neighbors. They know who I am. They know that I'm a person that they can come to for help in many aspects, and it's happened over the years. And people know, they know me in front of the camera, they know me behind the camera. I haven't been one of these candidates who have lost and have moved on. I've continued to stay here. I've been engaged behind the scenes. I've helped when I've asked to help. And I consider myself a major part of Somerville life. And I'm running because I want to continue to make life here better.
And the vast majority, Tony, of people who live here in the city do not own commercial businesses or commercial properties. And if they do own commercial businesses and commercial properties, they don't live in the city.
Right.
So you're kind of a unique individual in that you have a vested interest in terms of raising your family, owning residential property, and owning commercial property and employing people. So that's a little different.
Well, I think that's what makes this a very unique situation, in that I don't come here to work. I live here, and my commute is 5 minutes. I've had a long commute. I didn't like it. That's why we came back to the city. And I think it's different when you are a commercial and a business owner and live in the city. You feel more engaged. You feel as though you have to participate in a grander way, as well as you're giving back more because it affects you.
Yep.
Too often you get businesses that come and go, and their owners live outside. They live in Newton or Belmont or Lexington, wherever. They're not as committed to the city as some of those of us who live here, because we're really vested. And so that's the beauty. I care about where the direction of the city goes because it affects me in many ways. It affects my family. It affects me personally. It affects my business. Not many people can say that in the city. So, it's one thing to say you want to bring people together and, you want to make a difference. It's another thing to say you've been doing it for 20 years.
Because it's an extraordinary number. I may get this number wrong, so please, somebody correct me. It's an extraordinary number of residents of Somerville who have to go outside of our city for employment. It's upwards of 80-something%, which is an extraordinary number when you look at folks in Boston or Cambridge who have the commercial industry and commercial businesses that they can live in the city and they work in the city and they play in the city.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that mantra that a lot of, not just our mayor, Mayor Curtatone uses, but a lot of inner cities use. They want people to live, work, and play in those cities.
In those cities.
Right.
I think, and I think the city is doing wonderfully when you compare it to, other cities and towns and, the economic downturn. I think, the mayor has done a spectacular job in riding it through. Now, we are a very dense city. And because of the density and the lack of commercial development and the lack of, businesses growing in the city, we have to go out of the city to find employment. I think a lot of the rezoning that we have seen happen, long-term actually answers some of the questions that you just brought forward.
Beautiful segue, Tony Lafuente. Beautiful segue. Well, let's talk a little bit about it. From a business perspective, and from you're a homeowner here in the city. Let's talk about some of the major issues that are going to happen in Ward 4, and what your perspective is on that stuff. I know that you're very in tune with what happened in terms of the rezoning of Winter Hill. The future use of the Star Market site, what happens when the Green Line stop comes into the Homans. So in a general way, let's talk about what you're finding out. I know you've been out there, we were talking before the show, you've been out there knocking doors. No mean feat in the 100-degree weather, but I don't know if the residents of Ward 4 were too happy when they had to open a door and the AC is blasting and you're knocking at 100 degrees.
I will tell you, the beauty about that is that many of them were outside.
Yeah,
so it makes it a little bit easier.
There you go. So let's talk a little bit about that. I know that you've not just door knocking. You're employing something that we really didn't have a whole lot of during your mayoral run, which is social media. It's funny when we had talked about it earlier. your son Andrew is helping you with this campaign, and he's 20-something.
Yeah, Andrew's 21, and Alicia, who's also 23, my oldest
And Alicia, and they are so media savvy.
I mean, they've got me hooked up. We're on Twitter, Facebook, our website, TonyLafuente.com is up, and they're sort of engaged in that because that's their realm. Andrew's my walking buddy. He walks with me every day as I go door knocking. So this campaign, unlike the other two, is very much a family-run campaign. My wife is the treasurer. My kids are basically running the campaign day to day and maintaining things. And it's quite nice because you're together and things are discussed on a regular basis. And I'll tell you, my Andrews he's my toughest critic.
Well, it takes a lot of, but they can be the toughest critics, but they can also be trusted.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and you know that I've run for political office before, and you and I have talked about, when you try to engage people to come in and help you with the campaign, a lot of times you have to be very careful with those people who are coming in because you don't always know what their motivation is, So, but I think family run, if we had to take a lesson from anybody in this world, to take a lesson from the Kennedys about sticking close, and having the family run things because at least you know who to go to.
Yeah. Well, I'm certainly, that's not the reason why I'm doing it, because I'm certainly not a Kennedy, but, it's really quite nice to have the family involved.
Yeah. So in terms of the larger issues in Ward 4, and in no way, I think you would say it, in no way is it a comment on Alderman Perro's service and time, but let me start with one thing that, not being a Ward 4 resident, I need you to think about. Paving Temple Street.
Well, Temple Street is going to be paved this year. I have spoken with the mayor, and the mayor, has told me that the money has actually been set aside since last year for it, but they were waiting for the connection of the second phase of St. Polycarp. The utility connections.
The reuse of all of St. Polycarp.
They did the first phase, now they're doing the second. It made absolutely no sense to pave it last year
and then dig it up.
Have all cut up this year and redoing it. So it was a smart move on the city's part to wait. And I know it's a question that's frequently asked of me. But like I said, I did speak with the mayor, and he did say that it's going to be done this, if not late this summer, early this fall.
I answered one of the emails when they found out the candidates from Ward 4 were coming on the show. Ask them about Temple Street. So one of the other things, we were talking about the commercial redevelopment of Winter Hill. As you know, the city did massive rezoning. So you want to talk a little bit about that and the reuse of the Star Market site?
Sure. As I think most people know or may not know, the Star Market property is in litigation right now. We're dealing with a fairly tough owner. I was at the meetings last year when they were happening, and the mayor really had to answer to a very adamant owner who basically said, it's my property, I'm going to do with it whatever I want. And I think as the mayor has proven over his tenure as mayor, the city is going in a different direction. That might have been okay 30 years ago for somebody to think like that, but today the rezoning of Lower Broadway and coming into Winter Hill, we want to make things better. I don't think that we're going to rush into this Star Market site because we want to make it better, and we want to make sure that whatever we do with rezoning in Winter Hill, we get the absolute most, because we need to bring in jobs, we need to bring in businesses, and we have to make sure that we get the absolute best commercial development for the tax base. So that it's a three-prong approach that we need to take as we look at rezoning Broadway, and as we talk with owners and developers as to where they go with it. Because there's been a lot of very bad development in Somerville, past.
Tell me about it.
I think we've gone over the hump. I think the things that have happened in the last 8 years, 10 years, have been going in the right direction. So I think we should continue. And if a landlord is going to be adamant, or a developer, because he owns a piece of property, is going to be, stubborn to a great sense, I think the mayor did the right thing. You know what? You're not going to get it. The planning board, did not issue the permit on the Ocean State job lot based on the merits. It just wasn't a good thing for the neighborhood. We need, a food-based market. The residents need it. I think that whole area, needs it, so they don't have to walk down to Stop and Shop in other markets that are farther away. So I think we need to, work and keep engaged with the owner to see if we can get the very best for us.
It's outside of Ward 4, and I don't want to get you. They don't call this the hot set for nothing, Tony. I don't want to get you embroiled in a pre-campaign thing. But what if Walmart, who has now targeted the old Circuit City site, came to the owner of the current Star Market building and said, "I'd like to go in there"? How do you think the community would react to that?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know enough about the Walmart project, as it, in terms of what kind of foods, what price point it is. I mean, I just don't know how it fits. Walmart has some issues.
Yeah, we've seen it in the news.
So, I don't even want to discuss Walmart until those issues are resolved.
Right.
Because, first, I think our first priority, and it always has been for the last 10 years, we need jobs, and we need companies to come into the city to provide jobs, but they have to be responsible, and they have to, have responsibility towards their employees as well as the community.
Yeah, and I listened to the discussion that goes around the Walmart issues, and it's going to be up to Walmart to make their case. Mm-hmm. It's going to be up to them. But I tend to ask people when they talk about commercial development in Somerville, I say, what would you rather have in this city? Would you rather have decent wage-paying full-time jobs, or would you rather have thousands of part-time, low-paying, no-benefit jobs?
Right.
That's the decision, really, that the city has to make. And so far, it's my opinion, not Tony Lafuente's, we have been unsuccessful in bringing in decent-paying, full-time, full-benefit jobs to this city. We're getting a bunch of part-time, no benefits, low-paying, low-wage jobs. So let me not get you embroiled in that. That's my opinion. And so in Winter Hill, could you just describe, for somebody who hasn't followed that, how far does the zoning go? It goes from McGrath Highway up to?
It's, basically is in Ward 1. Not much has come into Ward 4, which, I'm hoping if elected that we can revisit. Because I think it's important, if we take a look at models, Broadway in the future, when you're thinking long term, with the rezoning that's happening in East Somerville, if we're able to carry it on, there's no reason why we can't have buildings with retail on the first floor, maybe office space in the second, and residential above. Mm-hmm. We're increasing the commercial tax base, which we desperately need. I mean, we've been talking about this for 20 years.
Right.
And we're on that path. Let's continue on that path.
Yeah.
You can't give away services, and you can't provide services unless you have the money.
Yeah.
So the future of the city is to do rezoning where you have the mixed use. And if you look at it, this is not a novelty in urban areas. No matter where you go in older urban areas, whether it be New York or Washington or Baltimore, even Boston, there's always a sense of you have retail on the first floor, and then you may have residential, or you may have a combination of residential and office space. And I think, it's almost, you have to walk back to the future.
Yep.
And I see that happening on Broadway.
Well, let's go, jumping out into the future. I mean, you and I had discussed it at one point in the past that, one of my aims working with Magoon Square and trying to see what will take shape, especially because of the Lowell Street Green Line stop and the Ball Square Green Line stop. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've been pushing and, using whoever will listen, is connecting those two squares from a commercial standpoint. Mm-hmm. Why have two standalone small commercial districts with 2 separate T-stops when you can rezone from Magoon Square all the way down to Ball Square and give yourself a nice, beautiful little commercial corridor with 2 T-stops. My vision, I don't know who's listening, let's go back to Ward 4. Gilman Square will get a T-stop.
Right.
If for those of you who are new to the city or playing along with the game, Gilman Square is that site between Marshall and School Street. There are small commercial buildings in there, a couple of gas stations, the Paddock Restaurant, a music studio in one of the old buildings, and then the Holman's building, when we refer to that, is the abandoned building that the city now owns. And that is the future site of one of the Green Line stops. So your thoughts on what the city should do at this point with the Holman's building?
Well, I mean, I don't really have any plans as to what the city should do. I'm sure there are discussions going on. We do know that the stop is going to be there. You know, I mean, I'm always for, if it makes sense, turning it over to private developers, so we get the absolute most that we can for it, as well as getting that commercial tax base in. So, you know, I see a combination of, again, retail, office space, maybe some studio space. You know, the particulars, you know, I don't know how, you know, what kind of negotiations have been going on or talks. But, I mean, I see it very much being a mixed-use building.
Because a lot of it is going to be predicated on what that actual Green Line stop looks like and how much of that land they're actually going to be using. Right.
And is that, you know, there's a gas station next to it. Is that going to be taken over by eminent domain so that it expands that? I mean, I don't know that. But, you know, I mean, we all have visions of what things should be. But I would be surprised if that does not go to a private developer so that we get the tax base out of it, as well as, you know, get some sort of community use out of it, whether, again, whether it be some affordability for some artist space or studio space of some sort. You know, I mean, there's a lot we can do with that building, and obviously we have time because we still have 4 years before the Green Line comes in. So we have a little bit of time to you know, to engage people and.
But you'd highly recommend that the city hold on to that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, hold on to it until we figure out what the best value that we can get.
Yeah, I mean, you know me, Joe, for many years, and you know, I've always been one. You never put the carriage ahead of the horse.
Yep.
You know, just take your time, and I think that's what the city's doing.
Those are just some of the issues that have been in the news. What else are you hearing from the residents of Ward 4 when you're knocking on the door?
Well, I mean, you know, I think a lot of the residents that I've spoken to, you know, would like to see Ward 4 move in the direction that some of these other wards have moved in. I mean, people talk about not having a breakfast place, which is true. We don't really have a breakfast place. So, you know, and I've said, well, you know, if we can ever come to an agreement with the owner of Star Market, why not put a small coffee place? You know, Ball Square has them, Davis Square has them, Union Square has them. You know, Ward 1, Lower Broadway have.
I miss our breakfast place in Magoon Square. It used to be a place called Frenchie's.
Oh, really?
Frenchie's Restaurant. I miss it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's important.
Some of the worst French toast for your arteries, but it was so good. So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So, you know, that's something that they talk about. You know, they talk about the Green Line extension and, you know, what it's going to do to that corridor.
Right.
You know, so there's going to be issues of affordability maybe as developments come on. Certainly you're not going to go to an owner of a 2 or 3 family home and tell them, you know, what they can charge for rent because they're going to take advantage of.
Now that's going to be the conundrum, though, isn't it?
Well, it certainly is.
When the Green Line comes through, because we have a lot of folks who are very concerned about affordability in the city. Yeah. You know, the more sexy the city becomes, and the more desirable the city becomes. We saw it happen in the south end of Boston. We see it happen in Jamaica Plain. We see it happen in many different cities around us. Now it's our turn.
Yeah.
The folks who have been there for a long time get priced right out of the city.
Yeah, you know, I have a term for that. I call it the social consequences of modernization. You know, the folks that brought in the T are the ones that are also now trying to put in some affordability safeguards because it's going to happen.
I call that careful what you wish for. Yeah.
Well, that could be. But like I said, you're not going to be able to do very much with existing stock. But as developments come in, I'm sure that, there'll always be some negotiations of affordability. And, and that's our responsibility. We need to make a commitment to that and, continue down that road. And I think Somerville does a great job with affordability.
Let me ask you this question. This is a hot seat question, and we eased our way into affordability. I was asked the question when I was running, would you be willing to support a 15% affordability set aside for larger developments? My response was yes, because I think you strike while the iron is hot. While the developers are coming in here, you don't raise that 15% set aside once you're all done developing. Mm-hmm. You put it on the table now so there's predictability for the developers.
Yeah.
Have your folks in Ward 4 been talking about that?
No.
We're currently at 12.5. Raising it to 15 is not going to kill any of these larger developers.
Nobody brings that up. The things that obviously get brought up or taxes, and then when you explain.
How about parking fees and fines?
Parking fees. People do talk a lot about the parking, and they would like more visitor parking made available.
Longer hours or days?
No, they don't. What I get from the residents is they would like to be able to have more cards. Mm-hmm. So when family comes over on Saturday or Sunday for dinner,
barbecues.
They have 5 or 6 cards that they have access to. It's that the taxes. Once you explain. For the services that we're getting, you're looking at the city, it looks wonderful, it's on the move, a lot of good things happening in Somerville. People begin to, realize that
it's really about choices.
Yeah.
When the voter thinks about it, it's about choices. If you only want your street swept once a month, then we can hold the line on that. If you want us to show up and snowplow only when there's 6 inches on the ground, we can do that.
Yeah.
If you only want your trash picked up once a week, we can do that.
Yep.
Or once every other week. Those are the types of issues that the voters really have to think about.
Yeah.
The basic services that you pay your taxes for. The fees and fines, I think, is completely different.
I want to say something on that,
Sure.
Joe, if you don't mind, real quick. I pay my share of taxes, both commercially and residentially. But I will tell you that I've had my commercial building since 1996. And the first time that Alston Street has been plowed on a regular basis every time it snows is when the Curtatone administration came in.
There's your endorsement, Joe.
Listen, it's a reality.
Did I tell you that 28 minutes was going to go by fast?
You certainly did.
Look at that little arrow up there.
Oh, yeah, it's over.
Look directly at the camera, tell the folks that you are running, and ask them a question, and give them your website.
I'm running for Ward 4 Alderman. I'm asking for your vote, and I hope that I am able to earn it. And if you have any questions or you like information, please go to my website, tonylafuente.com. Thank you.
Very good. And that's it for tonight. As always, stay safe, stay informed. I want to thank my guest, Tony Lafuente, who is running for Alderman, City of Somerville, Ward 4. Stay safe, Somerville. Good night.